What's up, everyone? Welcome back to our channel, Everything Jax Real Estate. I'm your host. My name's Justin. I'm with the Realkeeper Home Team. And on this video, we're going to be going over the market update report for May of 2024 as it pertains to the Jacksonville Beaches and the Jacksonville Southside area. In this video, we're going to dive into a lot of different market trends we're seeing right now with the amount of active homes in the market, the amount of homes going under contract, as well as what are these homes selling for when they do sell and how does that relate for the last month to the last 6 months. So when I come back, we're going to go over all of that great information. So you'll want to stay tuned so you can hear what I have to say. All right, so before we dive into our Jacksonville Beaches and Jacksonville Southside market update for May of 2024, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and ring the bell so you get notified when we post more videos like this in the future. And it helps us grow the channel as we continue to provide great content like this to you guys. So as we start off with the Beaches and Southside, first thing we're going to look at is we're going to look at the amount of homes on the market in May and how that relates to how many were actually under contract in May. And so what we can see here is we can see that there was 465 homes that were still in the market at the end of May, but there's also 131 homes that actually were under contract. This actually gave us a list to pend ratio of 22%, I apologize, pending ratio of 22%. And what that is that it measures the amount of homes under contract in relation to the overall amount of homes, pendings and listings that were on the market for any given month, in this case, May. At 22%, that means for every 5 homes that hit the market, roughly one's going under contract in May, which is a little bit less than we saw last month, but it's still relatively staying pretty consistent with what we've seen over the course of the last year or so. We've seen anywhere from 20 to 30% last year or so, so 22 were on the lower side. And that's something too to keep in mind is that as we go further along into this year, does that ratio, does it go down in percentage or does it go up in percentage? There's a lot of trends right now saying that it might actually go down because we are seeing more homes hit the market with less going under contract, which would cause that ratio to go down. But it'll be good to know how that actually does change as we go into the rest of this year. We also saw that for homes in the $400,000 to $600,000 range, those made up the majority of homes or the highest amount of homes in the different price ranges that were under contract. They also made up the most amount of homes that were on the market, so they all kind of relates to each other. If your $400,000 to $600,000 range has the most homes available, then it's pretty typical that you would expect that would also be the range that you see most of the homes under contract. All that to be said, the median list price for all the homes in this area was $767,500, which is a massive jump up from what we saw in previous months, which just goes to show that sellers are still trying to get a higher price for their home in relation to what the typical homes are going under contract at, which is also typical of this area, which has a lot of higher priced homes. So next thing we're going to look at is we're going to look at the graph showing us the amount of homes on the market in relation to the amount of homes under contract. And what you can see is there's a pretty healthy separation there of homes on the market compared to the homes under contract, which means that you as a buyer have a lot of options right now. With having a lot of options, that means you have the ability to negotiate price or terms more now than what we saw even last year at this time. So that's something that's good to take into account when you're starting your home buying process because it gives you a good idea of what to expect when you do find the home that you want to put an offer on. Now, if you're a seller, what you need to understand is you have more competition, so you might have to be more aggressive on your price or on the terms to get the best buyer possible for your home and get it sold in a reasonable time. So as we continue to move on down this line, we also saw that there was a total of 846 contracts that closed in the last 6 months. Now, this is actually not what I would have been expecting for this time this year. Typical seasonality would tell us that we probably should be over 1,000 contracts in the last 6 months for close, especially as we start to get these summer months in with data for, in this case, March and April and May. But what we're actually seeing is we're seeing that the contracts are going down. Now, you may ask yourself, okay, why is that? And the biggest thing I can tell you for that is that with the fact that prices have not really come down too much in this area, and the fact that we are seeing rates not really coming down either, with higher rates and higher prices, Some buyers are waiting on the sideline for rates to come down or price to come down, and that's having a direct effect on the amount of contracts that are closing when we look at a 6-month look back. The median sold price for those also was roughly $570, which is a pretty stark difference from the median list price of $757, I think it was, or 7 something. So pretty good size difference there from what the list price is versus what the closed price is when we look at a 6-month window look back. We did see too there was 145 homes that failed to sell, and that can happen for many different reasons. Sometimes maybe the house was priced inappropriately, sometimes the condition didn't warrant the price, sometimes the seller chose a different agent or chose to not work with the agent they were working with at that time, or the seller just chose not to sell anymore. So all those things do happen. Overall at 145, that's not anything to be too concerned about, and that's very typical for what we've seen in previous months as well. Next up, we are going to look at days on market. Now, days on market, what we see here is we are seeing that the active listing days on market is 38 days. 38 days is actually not too bad. It's kind of interesting when you look at this data, you think, okay, if we're having less contracts, that means the days on market should be going up. But it's not that they're necessarily going up at a very quick pace at this time. And so what we saw is that the median time on market was 38 days. Ultimately, if those days start to really go up to the 40s and 50s and 60s, that will have a direct impact on potential prices because at some point, most sellers do decide to lower their prices as the home's been on the market longer. Some sellers don't, but some sellers will. And so overall, 38 days is something we will monitor because that will have an impact on pricing in future months. Now, how's that compared to the homes that sold in the last 6 months? Well, for homes that are selling, in this case, in the last 6 months, they're only taking 17 days on the market. And you may ask yourself, okay, well, why 17 days when the active are 38 days? Because they're priced appropriately. And what I mean by that is, obviously, we know the median sold price was $570,000 for those sold homes. And that's about $200,000 or so difference between what the current homes are listing for versus what they're selling for. And so what that tells us is that a lot of homes that are selling because they're priced appropriately. And since they're priced appropriately, they're selling very quickly. So for you as a buyer, if you find one that's priced appropriately, understand you may not have as much time to decide on it as much as you'd like. So you may have to move somewhat quickly on it to get that home. As far as the active homes, something to keep in mind with is that if it's been on the market for more than 17 days, it might be priced a little bit high. So something to take into account when you're looking at homes is looking at the days on market to determine where the home is priced at and if it's appropriate or not. Now, in the last month, what we saw that the days on market actually went down to 11 days, and the price went from $570 in a 6-month look back to $650.25. So what that tells us is that since we're in the summertime now, the homes priced appropriately are actually selling for more in the last 7 months at $652. Still about $100,000 less than what the current active homes in the market are kind of around as for that median price. And the days on market being 11 days shows us that they are priced appropriately still. And now, even though it's a slower summer buying season that we've seen years past, it's not slow for all. And so for some of these homes in these areas, they are selling fairly quickly and for more now than what they may have been selling for a couple months ago, as shown with the data. Now, the median listed sales ratio for this area for the month of May was 97.9%. That's what that tells us. That tells us that sellers are getting roughly 98% of their asking price for the homes that are selling. So keep in mind, these homes, when they're priced appropriately, for you as a seller, you are getting close to your asking price. And you may ask yourself, well, what am I losing here? Well, at that 2%, 2.1%, that could be just price reductions. It could be concessions to a buyer, because currently, with the fact that rates are higher, a lot of buyers are trying to use some of that money to save to put towards their down payment, or save and put towards a rate buy down. So to be at 97.9% does show you that you are getting most of what you want as a seller when you're taking a contract from a buyer in these areas. Now, the absorption rate for the area was 3.3 months for inventory. So what that tells us is that we are still in a seller's market for the area, but ultimately, we are seeing more inventory levels now than what we've seen in months past and years past. And so at 3.3 months of inventory, it just means that as buyers, you have more options, and as sellers, you have more competition. And then lastly, we are going to look at this table here. In this table, what's going to show us, it's going to kind of show us at different price points what the true demand is for them. And what we can see is reds mean that it's a very heavy seller's market, and for this area, it's not surprising that if you're looking for a home between $2 and $4 and $400,000 and $600,000, there's gonna be a lot of demand. And those are probably the price points where we're seeing those days on market really low because of all that demand. But if you're starting to be in that 6 to 8, 8 to $1 million, million to $1.2 million is actually a little bit of discrepancy, maybe just for this month. You know, anything over $1.2 million, you're gonna have a little less competition, you're gonna have more options, and so you're gonna be able to negotiate a bit more with the seller or have more time to decide which house you wanna go with. Now, if you're looking and you're watching this video and you're looking for a home in the Beaches or Southside area and you're $1.5 million or up, well, for the most part, as you can see here, you're gonna have some options because you're actually in a buyer's market. And so ultimately, even if a seller doesn't understand that, they should, is that if you're looking $1.5 million, $2 million, $2.5 million, you're gonna have some options and you're gonna be able to negotiate a lot more now than you may have in years past to get the house you want. Now, will a seller agree to that? That's real estate for you. That's why it's always about coming to a meeting of the minds. But it does go to show the discrepancy between the lower price points, under $1 million, and the higher price points over $1 million, and what that demand looks like, what that supply looks like. Because we are in a buyer's market if you're over $1 million for the most part, or in a seller's market still if you're under $1 million for the Beaches and Southside area. So that's going to wrap up our market update video for the month of May for the Beaches and Southside. If you have any questions about anything I went over in this video, in the description of this video is a link to my calendar. Feel free to schedule time for us to meet face-to-face or through Zoom, or I do have my phone number on there. Feel free to give me a call. Always happy to discuss any questions you may have. And as always, you can always drop a comment in the comment section and we will respond to any and all comments. Obviously, the data is constantly changing, and in 2024, we are seeing massive changes and trends occurring every single day in this area of Northeast Florida, specifically in different areas like this with the Beaches and Southside. So overall, if you want to know the most up-to-date information, just give me a call or schedule time on my calendar. I would love to chat further about those questions you have and answer any potential questions you and your family may have about your move to the area of Jacksonville, or maybe your next home in the area of Jacksonville. So without further ado, that's going to wrap up our market update for the month of May, and I will see you guys again in our next video.